So let's now talk about pop-ups and specifically e-commerce pop-ups. Here's what we're gonna cover in this section. First, why should you use pop-ups? Secondly, what you shouldn't do with pop-ups. So basically common pitfalls to avoid. Number 3, I'm gonna share some examples of good pop-ups. And number 4 is basically the how-to tutorial, so how to create a high converting pop-up with Omnisend, where I share some tips and tricks, basically a full tutorial on how to create pop-ups for your e-commerce business with Omnisend. And number 5, what to do if your pop-ups aren't working. And by the way, for the ones that aren't really sure what a pop-up is, so here you can see an example. So you visit a website and then, for example, after 5 seconds, this pop-up appears on your screen. So this is a very common way for an e-commerce business. So where the pop-up basically shares a discount code. So get 10% off your order, and then the website visitor can enter their email address to claim the discount. That is basically a pop-up. So why should you use pop-ups as an e-commerce business? So reason number 1, many visitors aren't ready to buy on their first visit to your website. So if they leave, they might forget about your website and go somewhere else. So if you use a pop-up, it can help capture those first-time visitors before they leave your website. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, you increase your conversion rates. So while otherwise many of those first-time visitors would have left and never come back, you're now capturing, like, for example, 10% of those leads, and let's say 8% of them turn into customers. So in other words, you increase your conversion rate of your entire store. And number 3, you have the opportunity to upsell or cross-sell other products using a different channel. Email marketing, which you wouldn't have had otherwise if they aren't on your email list, of course. So you're basically gaining another sales channel aside from your other sales channels you already have. So what not to do with pop-ups? So here we can see a pop-up example of a real business. So grow your garden with $10 off your order of $100 or more. So I have some bullet points over here with some feedback. We will not discuss every single bullet point. So I'm going to start with bullet point number 2. So headline number 1. So that is this one over here, grow your garden with. So in my opinion, they should use a more compelling action verb such as unlock instead of grow your garden with. So they could have said unlock $10 off. And then they have 2 form fields over here. So you have the email address and they're asking for the zip code. So my advice is to never use 2 form fields on the same step. And just to quickly show you what I mean by different steps, so this is the form builder inside Omnisend, and as you can see, we have different steps over here. So want 10% off your first order, the moment they click on yes, get 10% off, they go to the second step where they have to put in their email address. So if you really want to ask for the zip code or something else, like a birthday, for example, as you can see in a different example we'll get to in a bit, my advice is to use different steps. And I'll explain more on how this works later on. So bottom line, don't use 2 input fields in the same step. And then we have the call to action, which now says submit. So my advice would be use a more compelling phrase like get my $10 off or claim my $10 off. So here we have a second example. Want 12% off your first order? Of course you do. Enter your email address to get the discount. When is your birthday? Hint, you'll get a coupon. A birthday field, sign up for deals. So my first impression was there's too much text here. So in my opinion, when someone sees your pop-up, they should immediately understand what the goal is of that pop-up, what the pop-up basically says. And this pop-up didn't do that for me. And as previously mentioned, here again, they're using 2 input fields on the same step, which will probably lower your conversion rate of this pop-up. And then we have the call to action, which now says sign up for deals. So in my opinion, this call to action is too generic. So use a more action-oriented phrase like get my 12% off or claim your discount. So they're mentioning the 12% off. In my opinion, they should also mention that in the call to action button. So here we have another pop-up example. Here is 10% off on us. So similar as before, so the button over here, the call to action, now it says subscribe. In my opinion, they should change it to claim that 10% off. So change the button text to claim 10% discount, for example. And many other businesses are following that same tactic. So here's another pop-up, as you can see, unlock 20% off. And then the button says sign up. Like, I don't want to sign up, I want that 20% off, right? And here again, another pop-up, save 10%, and then the button says sign up. So why not use the words unlock 20% off or claim 20% off? So here you can see a pop-up which in my opinion is a better example of a good pop-up. So get 10% off your order, sign up and unlock your instant discount. So we have one input field, the email address, and then the button says claim discount. So here we got another example. And they basically, as you can see, they're using different steps for different input fields. So besties get 15% off. Select the grade of the person you're shopping for to continue. So instead of putting this on the same step, they're putting this on a different step, as you can see, which probably increases the conversion rate of the pop-up. So they first have to mention, for example, grade 1 to 3. And then the next step is they have to enter the email address, and then the button says claim 15% off. So let me now show you how to do this inside Omnisend. So to create a pop-up form inside Omnisend, we're going to click on Forms, and then we're going to click on Create a Form. And then there are many different examples, as you can see, many different templates you can choose from. There's no template that you can use that you can start from scratch. You have to choose one of these templates. You can basically edit them, but there is not an option where you can start from scratch, just so you know. Over here we have some different filters. So for example, Omnisend also has this feature called the Wheel of Fortune, as you can see, which is pretty fun. But in this example, we're gonna go with this template over here. I'm gonna click on use this template. So the first thing I advise you to do is create different versions for mobile and desktop. So don't use the same pop-up for both mobile and desktop. So we're gonna change the name over here. I'm gonna click on edit. So we're gonna change the name to, for example, form 1 and then the desktop version. I'm gonna click on update. And then over here at behavior, here you can see the visibility. And if we click on it, we can show this form on all devices, mobile only, on desktop only. So we're going to choose desktop only because we want to tweak this form based on desktop version. Also after that, when you compare the results of these forms, you can see the analytics of both desktop and mobile separately. So desktop only. Then if you want to enable the double opt-in feature, you can do that as well over at behavior, and then audience management. If you click on it, here you can see the double opt-in. So it is disabled as default. So if someone opts in this form, will be immediately subscribed. If you want to enable the double opt-in feature, you can do that by checking this box, and then you can set up the double opt-in content. In this case, we are not going to do that. Then over here we have a scheduling feature. So always show the form, select the start date, end date, select the start and end dates. We're not going to use that in this example. Then we have the display, so the display options. So you have the option to show the pop-up when someone visits an X number of pages. You can also show the pop-up after some time on your website. So for example, after 3 seconds. So my advice would be to use, like, for example, 5 seconds. You don't want to have that pop-up immediately appear after someone enters your website. And by the way, you can also A/B test that, more on that later. So then you also have the option to show the pop-up after someone scrolls your page, or you can display the form when the visitor is about to leave the page. So with the mouse, they're going outside this window over here, and then the pop-up appears. So that's called the exit pop-up. So in this case, we're going to use the time on page. I'm going to go back over here. Then we have the targeting and decide who should see this form. And my advice is to use this one. Don't show to existing contacts, because this form is only for new people entering your email list. I'm going to go back. So then we have the visibility, but we already changed that. That is the mobile and desktop version. Then we have the frequency. So don't show this pop-up again after interacting with the form for, let's say, 1 day. That's fine by me. And then we have the A/B test feature, but we'll get to that later on in this tutorial. So let's now have a look at the content of the pop-up. And the first thing I would advise you to do is to delete this icon over here, because what many people do when they see a pop-up, they immediately go to the top right corner and want to close the pop-up, right? So if you remove that icon, you get a higher chance of the people actually reading your pop-up. And if they don't want that discount, they can click on no thanks. So I'm going to click on this icon over here, this close icon. But the thing is, as you can see, we cannot remove the icon. So we have to change the colors to basically blend it in with the image. And there's this handy Google Chrome extension, color color pick eyedropper where you can just scan the website, and there you can see the color code. So I'm gonna click over here, and this is the color code of that particular part of the image. So I paste it in over here, and as you can see, it already blends in pretty nicely. I'm gonna blend it there as well. So despite that the icon is still there, we cannot totally remove it, but at least it's far less visible right now. And especially if you have a better image where it's just one color, you can totally blend it in with the image. So next, if you want to change this text over here, you can just do so by clicking on it, and then you can add other text or change it. You can change the colors, you can change the text style over here. And then we have two buttons over here, as you can see. So that's this button over here. You can just click on it and you can drag it onto the form, and you can drop it. In this case, I'm going to remove this button. So if you click the button here, you can see the button action. So we have different choices. So we have 4 choices: submit the form, we can link to something, or we can go to the next step, which is in this particular case the right choice, or we can close the form. You can change the text, and then there's this button over here, and this button has the action close the form. So then if we go to step 2 over here, so the default text says sign up to get a 10% discount. I would change it to something like claim 10% discount. Then we have the input field for the email address, which is obviously required. And then we have the button over here. The button action is submit the form. And then the text is, in this case, the default text is submit. So if you followed my video up until this point, you know this would not be my advice. So instead, use a text like this: claim 10% coupon. This is an example. So then we have the success message over here. So the moment someone enters their email address and they click this button, claim 10% coupon, they'll get to this step over here, which is called the success step. And the default text is success, thanks for signing up for our email list. So instead of using the default text, I would use something like this: check your inbox. Also, check your spam folder if the email isn't there. And now you may be wondering, okay, so how does that email goes to that subscriber? Well, you have to check my welcome email series in this tutorial, where I explain in detail on how a welcome email series works for this particular pop-up. And in that part of this Omnisend tutorial, I will share a lot of tips and tricks for your welcome email series. So make sure to check that out. Anyway, there's also this discount block over here where you can just add the discount block, as you can see over here, inside your pop-up. But the issue is with this discount code is that you cannot use a dynamic, created and unique created discount code for that particular subscriber. Also, as you can see, you cannot create a time-sensitive discount code, which is my advice to do. And creating unique and time-sensitive discount codes is possible inside an email, so inside a welcome email series, as you'll see in the tutorial section for the welcome email series for this particular video. So I'm going to remove this discount block over here. So they have to check the inbox to make sure to find your email for that discount code. And then lastly, we have this step over here, the subscribe step. So if an existing contact enters their email address in this field and they're already inside your contact list, they already subscribed to your email list, they will see this message: you have already left us your contact information, which is pretty cool, of course, that Omnisend has that option to recognize existing contacts in your database. So if you click over here, you can decide to delete this step, so they won't see this message. So they will only see the success message. So in this case, I'm gonna delete this step. So then as you can see, we have another option over here, which is a teaser. We can also add a teaser. So if I click on the teaser over here, so we have some options over here. So show the teaser before displaying the form, or after closing the form, or before displaying the form and after closing the form. So you could show the teaser after someone closes the form. For example, maybe they close the form by accident. So in that case, they will still have the teaser. If they click on it, they will see that first step over here, so this pop-up. So if you want to enable the form, you're going to click on enable. But if you haven't set up that welcome email series yet for this particular form, you shouldn't click on enable, because then it will be enabled on your website. So you should first set up that welcome email series. So in this case, we're going to click on save and close. So this was the desktop version. So if we want to create the mobile version, we can simply copy this form. So we're going to click on copy over here, and I'm going to click on copy. And now we can edit the name, and I'm going to change the name to form 1 and the mobile version. I'm going to click on update. So now we're going to go to visibility over here, and we're going to say only show on mobile. So let's say, for example, on mobile, you want to use fewer words. So for example, you can say want 10% off, because the screen is smaller, of course. You can do that by just changing this text, of course. That wouldn't have been possible if you use one pop-up for both desktop and mobile. So other than that, I'm not going to change anything in this scenario. So again, I'm going to click on save and close. So next we have A/B testing. In other words, my pop-ups are aren't working. So if this is you, if your pop-ups aren't working, so remember that it is very unlikely that the first pop-up you create will perform well. And what do I mean by performing well? Well, you should aim for achieving a 10% opt-in rate on your pop-up if you're sharing a discount code with your audience. So let's say you start off with a 3% conversion rate or a 5% conversion rate or 6%, whatever. To improve, you should consistently test and iterate different versions of your pop-up to find what works best. So every audience is different. So aim for an opt-in rate between 10% and 20%. So here are some A/B testing ideas. And keep in mind that you should always keep A/B testing your pop-up forms. They can always improve a little bit. So here are some A/B testing ideas. So these are some ideas. So compare model pop-ups to full screen pop-ups. So for example, if we go back to our pop-up and here we have at behavior, here we have the A/B test. If we click on it, here you can see we have two different versions of this particular form. So copy 1 and copy 2. And here we can change, for example, copy 1 of this particular form. And by the way, the audience will be split 50-50 by default. You can change it if you want, but I think that's fine. So I'm going to click on the actions over here. So if you want to compare model pop-ups to full screen pop-ups, so this is a model pop-up. And if you want to change it to a full screen, you're going to go to theme settings, form layout, and here you can change the form width. So if we now click on save and close, so as you can see, this will be version A of the A/B test. If we go to version B, if we click on it, you can see this is the model pop-up. So you can also test different images. So you can test it without an image, as you can see over here. You can replace the image with a different image, of course. But you have to keep in mind with A/B testing. So for example, we now change the model to full screen, as you can see over here. If we go to save changes real quick. So this is the full screen version. That is the version A, and version B is the model version. You should keep in mind that you should only change one thing at a time. Because if you change multiple things, instead of only the model versus the full screen one, if you change multiple things, let's say the conversion rate goes up, you don't know what the reason is if you change multiple things. So aside from the model versus full screen, maybe you're also changing the image. You don't know what the reason is that the conversion rate went up. Is it because of the image change? Or is it because of the full screen versus model? So keep in mind that you only test one element at a time. So then there are some more ideas. So experiment with using images versus no images. So test different offers. Compare pop-ups with a countdown to those without. Try a mystery offer versus a 10% discount offer. So as I showed you before, Omnisend has this feature, Wheel of Fortune. So people can spin this Wheel of Fortune, which basically is the mystery offer versus, for example, a 10% discount offer. So another example is compare percentage discounts to dollar amount discounts. So for example, a $20 discount might seem more appealing than a 5% discount, depending on your average order value. So for example, if 5% of your average order value is $20, then I think you should use the $20 discount number instead of using a 5% discount number.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.